Disclaimer.
I never cheated, so why was I here?
My name is Sullivan Hayes. I am 38 years old. I died for 22 minutes on November 3, 2020 in Vancouver, Canada.
And for years, I struggled with something I did not even recognize as sin. I was not unfaithful. I never raised my hand. I never walked away. Before I begin, please subscribe so more people can hear testimonies like this. I was a worship leader at North Shore Community Church in Vancouver. Every Sunday, I stood on that stage and lifted my hands in praise. I sang about love, about surrender, about giving everything to God. And people believed me. They saw a man who was committed, a man who had his life together, a man who honored his vows. But at home, I was a ghost. My wife, Greer, and I had been married for 14 years. 14 years of shared bills, shared space, shared silence. We looked like a couple. We functioned like roommates. I told myself it was normal. That marriage just settles. That passion fades. That this was what commitment looked like after the honeymoon ended. But deep down, I knew something inside me was drifting. I stopped asking her how her day went. I stopped touching her unless it led somewhere. I stopped looking at her the way I used to. She would try to start a conversation, and I would nod without hearing a word. She would reach for my hand, and I would pull away to check my phone. She would sit beside me on the couch, and I would feel nothing. I convinced myself I was tired, stressed, busy with ministry. But the truth was simpler than that. I had stopped fighting for her, and I refused to face it. It happened on November 3rd, 2020, a Tuesday evening. We were at a church potluck in the fellowship hall. It was one of those warm, crowded gatherings where everyone brought something homemade and the smell of casseroles filled the air. I remember standing near the dessert table, talking to one of the deacons about the upcoming worship schedule. Greer was across the room, laughing with some of the women from the prayer group. I grabbed a plate and loaded it without paying much attention. Pasta salad, garlic bread, some kind of seafood dish someone had brought. I took a bite, and within seconds, my throat began to tighten. At first, I thought I had swallowed wrong. I coughed, cleared my throat, took a sip of water, but the tightness did not go away. It spread. My chest felt heavy. My breathing turned shallow. My vision started to blur at the edges. Someone nearby noticed. "Sullivan, are you okay?" I tried to answer, but no words came out. My legs buckled. The room tilted. I felt my body hit the floor, but my spirit stayed standing. One moment I was surrounded by voices, by hands reaching for me, by someone shouting to call 911. And the next, silence. I could see everything, yet touch nothing. My body lay on the floor beneath me, still and lifeless. Someone was performing CPR. Another person was on the phone with paramedics. Greer pushed through the crowd and dropped to her knees beside me. Her face was pale. Her hands were shaking. She was calling my name. "Sullivan, Sullivan, please stay with me." I wanted to reach for her. I wanted to tell her I was right there. But my hands passed through hers like smoke. The sounds around me began to fade. Voices became distant, muffled, like I was underwater. The lights in the fellowship hall dimmed, even though nothing had changed. The walls seemed to stretch. The people around me moved in slow motion. And then, I felt it. A pull. Not physical, not visible, but undeniable. It started in the center of my chest and spread outward, dragging me backward, downward, away from my body, away from Greer, away from the light. I tried to resist, but I had no strength. And deep inside, something whispered, "You thought you were faithful." The darkness thickened. It was not the absence of light. It was the presence of something heavier, something alive. The air around me grew hotter with every passing second. Not flames, not fire, just heat. Oppressive, suffocating, rising from below in slow, steady waves. I heard sounds in the distance. Not screams, groans, low, hollow, endless. The kind of sound that comes from someone who has been crying for so long they have no voice left. Shadows moved along the edges of my vision. Human shapes, bent, broken, trapped in slow, agonized movements. They were not running. They were not fighting. They were simply enduring. I was not falling. I was being pulled, dragged by an invisible weight I could not see but felt in every part of my spirit. The ground beneath me began to solidify. Cold stone, cracked, uneven, glowing faintly with ember-like light. And then I saw them, figures standing in rows. Motionless, heads bowed, not chained, not burning, just alone, isolated, forgotten. The atmosphere did not feel like punishment. It felt like absence. The absence of love. The absence of connection. The absence of God. And deep inside my chest, I felt a truth I had been avoiding for years begin to surface. This is where truth begins. The ground beneath me was solid now, cold stone pressing against my knees. I did not remember falling, but I was no longer standing. The heat surrounded me like a living thing. It did not burn my skin. It burned deeper than that. It sank into my chest, into my lungs, into the center of my soul. Every breath felt thick, heavy, like inhaling something that did not want to be breathed. I looked up. The space around me was vast, endless, but it did not feel open. It felt confined, trapped. The ceiling stretched into darkness, so deep I could not tell if it was miles above me or inches from my face. The walls, if they were walls, seemed to pulse, not with light, with shadow, moving, shifting, alive, and everywhere silence, not the peaceful kind, the kind that presses down on you. That makes your own heartbeat sound too loud. That makes you realize you are utterly, completely alone. I tried to stand. My legs shook beneath me. I forced myself upright, stumbling forward, my hands reaching out for something, anything to steady myself. But there was nothing, just empty space, just heat, just silence. And then I saw them, figures, standing in rows, dozens of them, maybe hundreds. I cannot tell. They were human, or they had been, but now they stood motionless, heads bowed, shoulders slumped, arms hanging at their sides. I moved closer. My footsteps echoed in the silence. As I approached, I began to see their faces. Hollow, empty. Tears streaked down some of their cheeks, but they did not make a sound. Their eyes stared at nothing, fixed on the ground, on the darkness, on something I cannot see. And then I noticed something else. They were not standing alone. They were standing in pairs. A man beside a woman. Another man beside another woman. Over and over. Couples. Husbands and wives. Standing side by side, but not together. Their bodies were close, but their hands did not touch. Their faces were turned away from each other. Silent. Cold. Distant. I stopped in front of one couple. The man's face was weathered. Tired. His eyes were red, swollen from crying. The woman beside him looked just as broken, just as alone. But they did not look at each other. They did not speak. They simply stood there, frozen in place, as if they had been standing like that for eternity. I felt something tighten in my chest, a weight I cannot name. And then I heard it, a voice, not from the couples, not from the shadows, from everywhere, from nowhere, deep, steady, unmistakable. These are the ones who shared a bed, but abandoned the covenant. I spun around, searching for the source, but there was no one, just the voice. They lived together, but died apart. I stumbled backward, my breath coming in short, shallow gasps. No, you whispered. No, they were married. They stayed together. They did not. The voice interrupted me. They stayed. A pause. But they were never truly one. The words hit me like a physical blow. I looked back at the couple in front of me, at the man who stood so close to his wife, yet so impossibly far away, at the woman whose tears fell in silence because no one was there to hear them. And I realized this was not a place for people who left. This was a place for people who stayed, but stopped loving. My legs gave out beneath me. I fell to my knees again, the cold stone biting into my skin. I did not. I choked on the words. I stayed with her. I never left. I never. You vowed before me to love her as Christ loved the church. The voice was closer now, right beside me, inside me. But you gave her your leftovers, your exhaustion, your silence. I shook my head, tears streaming down my face. I was tired, I said. I was busy. You were present in body, absent in spirit. The heat intensified. The air grew thicker. And then the ground beneath me began to shift. The stone floor rippled like water, and suddenly I was no longer kneeling in that dark, endless space. I was standing in my living room. Our living room. The one Greer and I had shared for 14 years. The couch. The coffee table. The framed wedding photo on the wall. Everything looked exactly the way I remembered it. Except, I was not alone. I saw myself, sitting on the couch, phone in hand, scrolling, and beside me, Greer. She sat with her hands folded in her lap, staring at the side of my face, waiting, hoping, trying. Sullivan, she said softly. Can we talk? I watched myself glance up from my phone for half a second. I said without looking at her. I mean, really talk, she said. Her voice was quieter now, fragile. I feel like we have not connected in so long. I watched myself nod, but I did not put the phone down. We are fine, I said. Just tired. Greer's face fell. She opened her mouth to say something else, then stopped. She looked down at her hands, and I saw it. The moment something inside her broke. The moment she stopped trying. The scene shifted. Now I was standing in the kitchen. Greer was at the sink, her back to me, shoulders shaking. She was crying. And the other me, walked right past her. I did not stop. I did not ask. I did not even notice. I just walked past her like she was not even there. The scene shifted again. This time we were in bed. She reached for my hand. I pulled away. She whispered my name. I pretended to be asleep. Over and over, I watched the same pattern repeat. Different days, different moments, but always the same. Her reaching, me withdrawing, her trying, me ignoring, her loving, me existing. I fell on my knees again, gasping for air that would not come. I did not mean to, I choked out. I did not know. The voice spoke again. She longed for your attention, and you gave her your distraction. I covered my face with my hands. She needed your affection, and you gave her your absence. My entire body trembled. The covenant is not broken only by betrayal. The heat pressed down on me. It is broken by neglect. I cannot breathe. I cannot think. I cannot escape the truth that was tearing through me like fire. The scenes around me faded. The living room, the kitchen, the bedroom, all of it dissolved back into darkness. But the voice remained. You thought staying was enough. I nodded, my face still buried in my hands. You thought absence of sin was the same as presence of love. I cannot speak. You were wrong. The ground beneath me trembled. And then I saw something else. A mirror, standing alone in the darkness. Tall, framed in tarnished gold. I did not want to look, but I could not turn away. I stood slowly, my legs weak, my heart pounding in my chest, and I walked toward it. When I reached the mirror, I looked into it, and I saw myself, not as I was now, but as I had been, standing in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed, face cold, eyes distant, and beside me in the reflection, Greer, her eyes filled with tears, her hands reaching out, her voice breaking as she said the words I had ignored 1,000 times. Please just see me. And the version of me in the mirror, turned and walked away. The reflection shattered. I collapsed to the ground, my chest heaving, my entire body shaking with sobs I could not control. I see it now, I whispered. I see what I did. The voice did not respond, but I felt a presence beside me. Not threatening, not comforting, just present, watching, waiting. And I realized something that made my blood run cold. I was not being punished for what I had done. I was being shown the truth of what I had become. The presence remained beside me. I could not see it, but I felt it the way you feel a shadow fall across your face. The way you know someone is standing behind you, even when you cannot hear them breathe. I stayed on my knees, my head bowed, my hands pressed against the cold stone floor. And then the voice spoke again. Stand. I did not want to. I did not think I could, but something inside me obeyed. I rose slowly, unsteadily, my legs trembling beneath me. My vision blurred with tears. My chest ached with a pain that had nothing to do with my body. The darkness around me shifted. The rows of silent couples faded into the distance. The stone floor beneath me dissolved. And suddenly, I was somewhere else. I was standing in a church. Not North Shore, not the one I knew, but a church. The wooden pews stretched out in perfect rows. The stained glass windows glowed faintly, though there was no sun behind them. The altar at the front was simple, vuota, empty, except for two figures standing before it, a man and a woman, holding hands, dressed in wedding clothes. I stepped closer. My heart pounded harder with every step, and then I saw their faces. It was me and Greer, younger, brighter, full of hope. I watched us stand before that altar, our hands clasped together, our eyes locked on each other. I saw the way I looked at her, the way she looked at me, like we were the only two people in the world. I heard my own voice. I vow to love you, to honor you, to cherish you, in sickness and in health, in joy and in sorrow, for as long as we both shall live. Greer's voice followed, soft and trembling with emotion. I vow to love you, to honor you, to cherish you, in sickness and in health, in joy and in sorrow, for as long as we both shall live. And then the scene froze. The younger version of me stood there, smiling, holding her hands, believing every word I had just spoken. The voice returned. You made a covenant before me. I nodded, tears streaming down my face. Not just a promise, a covenant. The word hit me like a hammer. A covenant is not kept by staying. It is kept by loving, by honoring, by cherishing, every single day. The scene began to change. The younger version of me and Greer faded, and in their place, new images appeared. Moments from our marriage, but not the ones I wanted to remember. I saw myself sitting at the dinner table, silent, while Greer tried to make conversation. She asked me about my day. I gave one-word answers. She asked me how I was feeling. I shrugged. She reached across the table to touch my hand. I pulled away to check my phone. I saw myself lying in bed beside her, scrolling through social media while she stared at the ceiling, tears slipping silently down her cheeks. I saw myself walking out the door in the morning without kissing her goodbye, coming home at night without asking how her day went, sitting beside her on the couch without holding her hand. Over and over, I saw myself break the covenant, not with another woman, not with anger or violence or betrayal, but with silence, with absence, with neglect. The voice spoke again. You thought because you did not commit adultery, you were faithful. I cannot speak. But faithfulness is not the absence of sin. It is the presence of love. The images continued. I saw Greer in the kitchen, folding laundry alone, her face tired, her shoulders heavy. I saw her glance toward the living room where I sat, and I saw the hope flicker in her eyes, then die when I did not look up. I saw her in the bathroom, staring at herself in the mirror, whispering words I had never heard. Am I not enough? I fell to my knees again, my hands covering my face, my body shaking with sobs. I did not know. I choked out. I did not see. She showed you. The voice was not angry, but it was unyielding. She reached for you. She spoke to you. She cried in front of you. She begged you to see her. And you looked away. The truth of it crushed me, because I knew it was real. I had seen her pain. I had heard her voice. I had felt her hand reach for mine. And I had chosen nothing. Not another woman. Not a lie. Just nothing. The images faded. The church dissolved. And I was back in the darkness. Back in the heat. Back in the suffocating silence. But this time, I was not alone. A figure stood before me. Tall. Robed in light that did not illuminate the darkness around it. The light came from within. Pure. Unbearable. Beautiful. I could not look directly at it. But I felt it. The presence I had sensed since I arrived. It was him. I knew without being told. Jesus. His voice was the same one I had been hearing all along. But now it was not distant. It was right in front of me. Sullivan. I could not lift my head. Look at me. I forced myself to raise my eyes. And when I did, I saw his face. Not angry. Not disappointed. Heartbroken. I gave you a gift, he said. I gave you a partner. A companion. A reflection of my love for the church. And you treated her like a burden. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but no words came. Because there was no defense. You stood on a stage every Sunday and sang about love, about surrender, about sacrifice. And then you went home and withheld all three from the one I gave you to love. His words did not accuse. They revealed. Millions do what you did, Sullivan. They attend church. They serve in ministry. They call themselves faithful, and they go home to marriages they have already abandoned in their hearts. I saw it now. All of it. The slow drift. The quiet death. The covenant broken not in a single moment, but in 1,000 small choices. Every time I chose my phone over her voice. Every time I chose silence over conversation. Every time I chose comfort over connection. I have been breaking my vow. Every single day. Lord, I whispered. I did not know. You did. His voice was gentle but firm. You knew. You felt the distance. You saw her pain. You heard her tears. And you chose to ignore it. I had no response. Because he was right. I had known. I had just convinced myself it did not matter. He stepped closer. The covenant is not about perfection, Sullivan. It is about pursuit. It is about choosing her. Every day, even when you are tired, even when it is hard, even when you do not feel like it. I nodded, my vision blurred with tears. You vow to love her as I love the church. Do you know how I love the church? I shook my head. I pursued her. I sacrificed for her. I gave everything for her, even when she turned away, even when she ignored me, even when she broke my heart. His words pierced me. That is the standard you vowed to meet. I fell forward, my face pressed against the cold stone, my entire body racked with sobs. I failed, I whispered. I failed her. I failed you. Yes. The word hung in the air. But then, his hand reached down, and he touched my shoulder. The heat lessened. The darkness cracked, and light, faint but unmistakable, began to seep through. Your time is not finished, he said. I looked up, my face streaked with tears. You will return, and you will honor what you almost lost. The light grew brighter. The stone beneath me began to tremble, and I felt it, the pull, but this time upward. His hand remained on my shoulder, firm, steady, anchoring me to something I could not see but felt in every part of my spirit. The darkness around me began to crack, not slowly, violently, like glass shattering under impossible pressure. Light poured through the fractures, bright, blinding, pure. It did not just illuminate the darkness, it consumed it, devoured it, replaced it with something I had not felt since I descended into that place. Hope. The stone floor beneath me trembled. The oppressive heat that had pressed down on me for what felt like eternity lifted. The suffocating air thinned. I gasped, and for the first time since I died, I could breathe. The rows of silent couples behind me faded into the distance. Their faces, their tears, their eternal separation, all of it dissolved into the light. But I would never forget them. I would never forget what I almost became. His voice spoke one final time. You will return, and you will honor what you almost lost. The light intensified. My soul was no longer being pulled downward. It was being pulled upward, with force, with power, with a violence that felt like being ripped out of one world and hurled into another. I felt his hand release my shoulder. And then, I was falling. No, not falling. Rising. Faster than I could comprehend. The light became sound. The sound became pressure. The pressure became pain. My chest exploded. Air shot into my lungs like fire. My back arched off a hard surface. Hands pressed down on me. Voices shouted around me. Machines beeped. Lights burned my vision. I gasped, choked, coughed violently. We have a pulse. He is back. Sullivan, stay with us. I cannot see clearly. Everything was blurred, spinning, too bright, too loud, too much. But I was alive. My heart was beating. My lungs were burning. My body was trembling. Someone leaned over me. A woman. A paramedic. Her face was urgent but kind. Sullivan, can you hear me? You are at Vancouver General Hospital. You went into cardiac arrest at the church. We have been working on you for over 20 minutes. You are back now. You are safe. Safe. The word felt wrong. Because I was not safe. I had been shown the truth. And now I had to live with it. I tried to speak, but my throat was raw. An oxygen mask covered my face. I could barely move. The paramedic touched my shoulder gently. Do not try to talk yet. Just breathe. You are okay. But I shook my head. I reached up with trembling hands and pulled the mask away from my face. My voice came out broken, hoarse, barely audible. Where is Greer? They brought her to me 2 hours later. I was still in the ICU, wires connected to my chest, monitors beeping steadily, my body weak, my spirit awake. When the door opened and Greer stepped inside, everything else disappeared. She stood at the foot of my bed, her arms wrapped around herself, her face pale, her eyes red and swollen from hours of crying. She looked at me like she was afraid I might vanish. And I looked at her and saw everything I had ignored for 14 years. The woman who had loved me when I stopped loving her back. The woman who had reached for me when I pulled away. The woman I had vowed to cherish and then abandoned while standing right beside her. I broke. Tears poured down my face. Greer, my voice cracked. I am so sorry. She did not move. I see it now, I whispered. I see what I did. I see how I hurt you. How I let you go. How I broke our covenant every single day and convinced myself I was still faithful. Her lips trembled. I reached out my hand. I do not deserve your forgiveness, I said, but I need you to know I'm not the same man I was 3 hours ago. She stepped closer, slowly, carefully, and then she took my hand. Her fingers wrapped around mine, and I held on like my life depended on it. Because it did. That was 2 years ago. I stepped down from worship leading. We started marriage counseling. I began pursuing her the way I should have been all along, leaving notes, asking questions, listening when she spoke, touching her without expecting anything, praying with her, fighting for her. Our marriage is not perfect, but it is alive. If you are hearing this, it is for a reason. Maybe you are married and your heart has gone cold. Maybe you have convinced yourself that staying is the same as loving. Maybe you have been emotionally absent for so long you do not even realize it anymore. Do not wait until it's too late. Do not wait until you are standing in the darkness, watching the covenant you made crumble in front of you. Examine your heart today. Look at your spouse. Really look at them. And ask yourself, am I honoring my vow? Or am I just going through the motions? Turn back while there is still time. Tell me where you are watching from. I want to pray for you tonight. And stay connected. There are more warnings people need to hear.